a second. So how many of you guys have millennial employees right now? Yeah, raise your hand high. How's that going for you guys? Anyone like, you're like, hey, this has actually been really, really easy having all these millennials. You, for real? Easy. It's been easy. No, no. Anyone? Huh? Growing and stretching. Okay. Sounds like marriage. All right. Who else? Anyone like? Yes, sir. Well, Airbnb. That okay. That's a cool one though. Good job. Okay. Anyone would like? Be honest. Anyone has it been kind of difficult, kind of hard? Anyone? Okay. Any of y'all would say this is one of the hardest statistics for the business community. I get to talk to a lot of pastors, a lot of parents, and a lot of business leaders. But for the business leaders, did you guys know that Barna found that the average millennial is on the trajectory to have 14 jobs by the age of 40 years old? So 40. And so I keep joking is like 40 is usually the age that's kind of given the midlife crisis. Like that's when you start having this point where you're like, what am I supposed to do with my life? And I'm like, man, by that age, that's when millennials will have already had 14 jobs and then trying to figure out what are they going to do with their life if we stay on this trajectory. And so really what I want to talk about, there's so many things that I always race when I talk to this group. This is my third year, but this morning, some of us millennials met up. I don't know if y'all saw that. There was a millennial meetup. And I was thinking, what would a Gen Z, I like millennial meetup, like the two M's. I was like, what would Z, like there's not going to be much to do with the Z generation. You guys also may be wondering what's coming after Gen Z. I always, because there was Xers, that's my parents' generation, Gen Y or millennials, and then there's Gen Z. And then if you didn't know, Jesus is actually just going to come back. Like that's the end. Like he's going to be here. But if he doesn't, they've actually come up with a name for those under Gen Z or after Gen Z, and they're just going to call them the Alpha generation. So just starting over with the Greek and just going to start all over. I was thinking they should give us numbers. I think the best thing is they probably shouldn't have started at X. They should have started at A and given a lot of time. Like they started with 3 letters left. And so the real talk is, which means seriously in millennial, is let's talk about millennials in the workplace because I know that's where you all are. I'm going to talk to you guys somewhat as parents and somewhat as employers to millennials because the conversation that came up this morning, one of the girls said, honestly, I love what they're talking about here at this conference, but the reality is once I go home to my parents, I'm not going to be able to explain it to them. Like they're going to ask me how was the conference and I'm just going to say, yeah, it was good because they won't understand. And I see that among a lot of young, mature Christian millennials is they're pursuing things for God and their parents actually don't necessarily like that, even if they're Christians. Maybe you guys feel like that today, where you're like, your parents are like, why in the world do you do what you do? You're so gifted, you could do something else that made more money. Amen? Anyone? Luckily, what I like about this conversation is it's like, hey, serving God doesn't necessarily mean you have to be broke. It means you got to actually make good money, be the best at what you do in your market, and serve people. So real quick, what I want to talk about is I want to break down the American dream, which can sometimes feel like a millennial nightmare because it's not the same dream that you guys had, or it's more so, it's not the same dream that we have access to. Like what was is not what is today. And so real quick look at that. And before I do that, again, 2 things. I'm going to pray, and then you can ask questions at any point. So I can only probably answer in the time given 2, maybe 3 questions. But if you raise your hand, I'll totally like slow down. I finish my thought and then probably answer a couple questions. I just ask that you keep the question to 30 seconds and you make it a question, not a comment. So yeah, question, 30 seconds. And it's not going to throw me off. It's going to throw me on. It creates a dialogue less than just a monologue. And so with that, let me pray and we'll get into it. God, thank you for men and women that I just even feel like this conversation, I pray that you would make it more normal. Let it not be this idea of, even what the man before me was sharing, of life just being mission, whether that's the community you live in, the the church you go to and serve in, or of course the job that you dedicate 1/3 of your life to. We're spending a lot of time at work, so to think that we're not going to bring your mission, just even reading the Bible today, how many times you say that we are of you, we are from you, and we are for you. And so, God, if I can help in any way over this next couple minutes, God, would you use my words, my story, but especially your word and your story to give insight, encouragement, especially hope, and a little bit of clarity and confidence to anyone leaving. That I know there's a lot of content going out there, but that each person, when it comes to the next generation, because this is such a pain point, and for parents of millennials, a very spiritually difficult place where it just hurts to know that your children are far from God, if that is the case for any parents here, that they could leave with one step and just one thought that makes them a little bit more encouraged about the future of the church. We do know that where persecution happens, that we seem to have a more sincere, severe faith because, we know then we can't do anything without you. So I do pray if that is the case for the next generation, if it is going to be difficult, that at the bare minimum, that it actually strengthens our faith and purifies our motives. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. All right, let's talk about the American dream / potential millennial nightmare. All right. Sorry, I don't know why. So I always say I'm not a speaker. I'm a comedian that just happens to love Jesus, because I'm always thinking punchline and joke. Let's show the slide now. This is the American dream from a perspective of a young person. And so the one slide that we did have up, and I'll start controlling it from there. I don't know how to put it up, but you guys, I don't know if it's like got to switch to my presentation. And if I can start it over if I need to as well. Yes, awesome. Thank you guys. Sorry about that. So let's see. This is my perspective of the American dream. Again, I just want to tell you right off the bat, I have successfully dropped out of college 3 times. And so this is a limited perspective, but from my South African, Mexican dropout perspective, this is the American dream. It's like, does this disqualify everything else I'm about to say? So you go to college, right? Which I've already not done. And I did go. I always tell people, they ask, what college did you go to? I tell them, this is the college I went to. That's all you ask. You didn't say what college did I graduate from or what college did I finish. I went to 3 colleges. That's actually when I went to. So you go to college, ideally for 4 years. The Lord knows that doesn't happen anymore. And so you go longer, then you get a job. Hopefully, back in the day, let's say Xers and Boomers, you got a job that like lasted a long time. You stayed faithful to for a long time. I remember dating this girl once, and her dad was like retiring, and he only had one job out of college his whole life. And he had a high position in that job because he was faithful to one job. I realized that my generation doesn't really do this that well, clearly, and so it's really difficult if my generation's always switching their ladders. They never get to see what's at the top of the ladder, and then it doesn't seem satisfying. And I'm like, as you guys already know, it's because you don't get to the top of the ladder overnight. It takes time. But you stay faithful to one job, you get married, maybe you get married in college or right out of college, you join a church, and if you stay faithful to those things, you get the American dream, whether that's the house, the better life. A lot of this mindset, in my opinion, of the boomer generation, the Xer generation, but especially boomer, is a little bit more provision focused. It's like you get a job that makes good money. You get a major that leads to a job that makes good money. And provision as a motivation is not a bad thing. American dream sometimes is really criticized by the church or pastors because it's associated with maybe greedy or selfish or comfort. But I would say at the core, the good side of the American dream is just simply you want to provide a better life for your family and your kids than what you had. Which any parent that doesn't want to provide a better life for their kids, that's kind of odd and kind of strange. And so I don't think the American dream is bad at the core of the provision. Now, as all things, I think I heard G.K. Chesterton. I didn't hear him. I read it. I don't think I was around. But he once said that every vice is a virtue gone wrong. So every vice is a virtue gone wrong. I think it's a virtue to want to provide a better life. It's a vice to be dedicated to a degree that it's like, at what point have you not already provided a better life? Like, guys, I was just thinking this morning how comfort doesn't actually help. Of course, we know that, but like we used to I know this, oh man, I'm sounding like an old guy. We used to have to go to drive somewhere to get a movie. Like, we used to have to get in our car and go. Like, I just don't think millennials would have watched movies. Like, you had to have to really make a commitment to, like, I'm gonna have to get up. One, that's already too much right there. Like, two, I'm gonna have to then go into a car. That's already a lot. I have to walk to the car. Three, I gotta go to the place. Then I have to choose and find, and I have to then use my own money to buy this. It's like, and then I have to do it all over. I have to drive back. Like, there's so much commitment here that, like, that's what life used to be like, is you have to do that. Like, I remember when Spotify and Apple iTunes came out, I was like, yo, what will it be like now that I don't have to, like, wait till the song comes on the radio and, like, record it at the right time? I can, like, listen to any song I want, or I don't have to buy a whole CD when I only want one song from this CD, because he's not a good musician, but they did get this one song right. Like, now I can listen to all of this and have everything access to it. It doesn't actually help. It actually, we're not happier because of it or more grateful. We're not like, remember the days when the phone was connected to the wall and there was a string that only let us go so far? Like, none of us are happier or more grateful, even though we experienced all that. In fact, we seem to be like less grateful, like we don't have a lot. And so the American dream in provision is good, but there's a generation that got to experience it. And also, let's just break it down real quick. I'll break down this idea from a younger perspective. If I'm 19 and I'm going to college, my parents are like, hey, you need to get a job, ideally a good job. You need to go to college. One, college. Let's just break that down. College right now has a better guarantee of putting your kids into debt than getting them a job. That's not a good guarantee. Like, that's, how many of you guys are financially feeling that guarantee right now? That's not a guarantee that that's so terrible that that's the case. Is like, how many friends I got to grow up in high school and middle school and see, like, dang, they're getting a bachelor's in this, but then I don't know, how did you get a bachelor's in, like, speak or communication, and you're working at Starbucks after graduation? Like, I guess you are speaking a lot, but it's like not, I don't think this is how you wanted to do it. Use that, like, communication is happening all the time. Like, you do have to pronounce some very unique things, mochiatas and all that. Believe it or not, y'all, I have never tried coffee in my entire life. Never even tried it. I know it's good. That's why I don't want to try it. You guys are absolutely addicted to it. The way my friends in high school talked about drugs is the way y'all talk about coffee. It's like, yo, I haven't had this. I haven't had my coffee yet. Like, okay, you get to be a mean person because you haven't had coffee? Or, oh, I'm not awake yet. No, you literally are talking and awake and out of bed, but I'm not really awake because I haven't. The way we talk about coffee is the way I thought we were supposed to talk about God, but it's not. It's like, I haven't had my time with God yet. I'm not awake yet because God is, nope, coffee. It's the most acceptable sin in the church. Anyway, nothing to do with what I'm saying. I'm so sorry, y'all. And so you go to college. Again, break down college. Does college differentiate you from everybody else as much as it did 30 years ago? A bachelor's degree. Let's just be real. No, it does not. Not to mention how much college is like, I don't even feel like practically preparing you for life anymore. It's just like information transfer. Then the job. For a young person, a job is two things. For many young people, a job is something that they saw their parents, mostly their father, in America at least, give their soul to, give their life to, give their, like, extra hours overtime to, in exchange of time, presence, and intentionality with their family. Like, how many dads did jobs they hated and then never got time with their kids? And maybe not because he didn't want to, it was just by the end of work, it was like all they wanted to do was veg out and watch. I'm from Dallas, so I guess the Cowboys, or God's team, if you all know about them. They just wanted to veg out. Or, I mean, how much of that generation, like, golfed and used hobbies? There's a joke in This Is Us where they were teaching the father, the husband, about golf. They're like, oh, it's not actually that you like this sport. It's just a long sport and it takes you away from the family so you can actually rest. And so that was the joke. I mean, but he was being serious in it, like saying, it's not, yeah, you just do it because it's a way to get away. There was a lot of that where he's like, I lost my dad to not an affair, but just somewhat of an affair to this job. Two, this is a bigger one, is a lot of young people saw their parents do jobs that they absolutely hated. Like, never talked good about, never had, we talk about Abraham Kuyper's, like, not a square inch that God doesn't claim as mine. It's like, they hated this job. It's like, never, don't even want to talk about work, didn't even know what they did. It was just like something they went to all the time that didn't even like it. But provision did provide a better life for their kids. So one thing I want to make a comment on. My generation is terrible at recognizing that was a sacrifice for the family. Like, that, I would even say, if you know about, like, is it Maslow's hierarchy of needs? It's like, we have gotten a lot of those basic needs provided by our parents sacrificing their time, sweat, tears, soul, youth in a way even, so that we can have the ability to now be at the top of that, where you start thinking about purpose. And like, if you're homeless, you're not thinking about purpose, you're thinking about food and shelter and stuff like that. Does that make sense? Is like, actually providing all those things has put millennials in a place, because of y'all's sacrifice, to, of course, start considering passion and purpose in their job. I'll go into that in a second. Marriage and church, real quick. Marriage, is there a generation that has seen more divorce than the millennial generation? Like, they got to see a lot of their parents. I mean, even now, so many of my friends, I'll even be honest with my own family, like, it's like divorce is like, now after 29 years, that's how old I am, that we're thinking about divorce. There's a lot of seeing that, where you're seeing, young people prolong adolescence and marriage, but that's another one, is like, I want to choose someone I love, not just makes sense, or do y'all get what I'm saying? Like, it's not that there wasn't love. I apologize. That's just wrong. It's just that just be more intentional of, like, I want a marriage that lasts, is what I would say, because I don't think anyone gets married thinking it won't last. Church, this is a big one, y'all. Y'all are the marketplace community. We need to love on the church, but I do think y'all already know this. I'm speaking to the choir. I always tell church leaders, like, y'all, I would push you, if you could do one thing, it's disciple someone. That's the best trick to reach the next generation. Disciple them. It's crazy. I just learned that. It's a discovery. I'm a prophet. Simply go and make disciples. God just gave me that. It's brand new. Go do that. I even feel like he's giving me some more. Go and make disciples of all nations. Baptizing them. Oh, man, it's coming in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Teaching them to, what is it, God? Observe all that you've commanded, and he'll be with us to the end of the age. That, I just got that downloaded. You should do that. You should simply go do that. It's a real cutting edge approach to the next generation. It's crazy, but I think it might work. So, with the church, the discipleship is not 17%. Only 17%, according to Barna, Christians disciple someone. The language they use is only 17% of Christians have a frequent connection with a young person to pour into them. It's only 17. I always say, you know why the next generation, or like, that our issue isn't a millennial problem. Our real issue is a discipleship problem, that we don't go and make disciples. And the church breakdown is, and I think there's a difference between mentorship and discipleship. To me, mentorship is come and meet with me. Discipleship is come and follow me. I will show this right here. Just real quick, I don't want to make this discipleship message, but come and meet with me. That's a regular meeting. Most of you guys are really busy. You do not have time. I understand. And so discipleship actually is better, because it's come and follow me. It's them joining your life. You think about Jesus and the disciples didn't move. Jesus didn't move his life around the disciples. The disciples moved their life around Jesus. Jesus just lived. Whoever wanted to join could be his disciples. We try to make it a meeting where it's like, let me find a time where I can move my life around you as a younger person. No, the great thing about millennials, even staying single longer, is we have what you don't have. Time. Free time. Like, my brothers are both married with several kids. God, it is so much work to go to Chipotle. Like, to get his kids into the car is 30 minutes commitment. Like, again, this is why families cook. Is because I realized he's like, can we just cook? I'm like, no, we just got them in the car, bro. Like I'm going by myself at this point. Like we had to get them in the car at the same time. Close the doors. Let's go. They're in the car right now. I'm dead serious that this happened. I'm like, dude, this is. Yeah, I don't want to get married. Um, so real quick is that this happens, and so with the church, going back to the church is a longer church breakdown and why this really isn't connecting. Because right now, statistically, 7 out of 10, this is Lifeway Research 2014, 7 out of 10 young people are leaving the church once entering into college. 80+% of them didn't plan on leaving the church. They didn't think they would. Something about going to church without your parents or just like it being your priority doesn't become a priority when you're in college. And I think because college and nonprofits and entrepreneurial organizations and all that do community and cause better than the church right now. Like they have more communal presence. Youth group is very Great Commission centric and community centric, but big church is just straight boring in my opinion, as a hobby. If that's it, if that's all. Like if Christians are going weekly without saying, come and meet with me or come and follow me, basically, if we're calling ourselves disciples of Jesus Christ, but we don't disciple like Jesus Christ, it gets pretty boring. Like any group where the people don't do what the actual group is designed to do, wouldn't that be kind of boring? Like we're a painting class and they're like, it's been 15 years. When are we going to paint? Like, I thought that's what we can. I'm Dancing with the Stars. No, it's like learning what stars used to dance too. Like for 20 years, when do we get to dance? Like dancers that don't dance are boring. Painters that don't paint get bored. I actually don't think that we're only boring. 67% of millennials think that Christians are boring. That we're boring. Like that millennials, by and large, just think we're boring. And that's what I actually think is further than that for Christians or the church, is I don't think we're just boring. I think we're bored. Like, I think we are bored when church just becomes, it's not come and meet with me. We're not saying come and follow me. We're just saying come and listen to me. Weekly. By the way, because I know you guys don't get any content in your world. Like, millennials, no one's ever trying to reach you guys with content. And so we're really set apart by saying come and listen to our content. You guys get what I'm saying? Like, maybe content or come and listen to me might be the least valuable it's ever been. And what I'm not saying is the gospel content is less valuable. I'm not saying even change the content. Jesus said, not Jesus, wow. This is just going to be funny because it's not Jesus, but it's close. Billy Graham once said, wow, I'm sorry. It's not supposed to be a joke. It's supposed to be spiritual. Billy Graham once said, the methods always change, but the message stays the same. And so, like, the message doesn't change, but the vehicle, I don't think it's the institution of the church. And actually, I don't, again, that's dumb. I think the institution of the church is the only institution that will last forever and has a certain type of authority. And I do think the institution as the people of God personally. And so I do think there needs to be a little more like grace of like, actually we are the church out in the culture. But I also, as a millennial, so quickly would people think like I'm against the church or whatever. I'll come to you in 1 second. And so what I mean is the church, I'll just say this. Why is the most cause-oriented generation in the world right now that's dying to be a part of a cause? Like, they'll look for Coney, if you remember that in 2012. They only looked for him for like 3 months and then gave up. But like, they'll look for Coney. They'll put an ice bucket on their head for a good week and then never do anything again. They will put an X on their hand at least once a year for End It movement. Only a hashtag though. But then they'll do that. Like, we are a slacktivist generation, which is activists on their computer generation. But I joke about it, but it does still show at the core of us, we want to be a part of a cause, community. The thing is, all these things fall short of the biggest cause in the world, the gospel moving through the people of God into the culture and into the people that are far from him, that are without hope, therefore without God. So, how's the most cause-oriented generation in the world right now not connecting over here to the most cause-oriented organization in the world right now? Us, as the church. The only thing I conclude is maybe because the most cause-oriented organization in the world right now has neglected its cause of making disciples. it's not normal for us to make disciples. So we don't have a millennial problem. I think we have a discipleship problem. Because I'm a millennial guy, and I don't know if this is a secret. I want to keep my career going, but like, millennials are old now. Millennials are like 38 years old. Like, they're almost 40. They're gonna finally hit their midlife crisis. Like, Gen Z's here, and the world's already talking about them. It's the church that's still talking about millennials. The question shouldn't be, how do we reach millennials? It should be, how do we leverage millennials to reach the next generation? That should only, like, that's the importance of the millennial generation, is how do we disciple them so they disciple the other next generation? So let me come back to your question, sir.
So I heard a millennial screenwriter in Hollywood say that brevity and irony is the key to reaching his generation. And I thought about that in the context of the Bible. Every story in the Bible can be told briefly,
that's good.
And it's full of irony. And so how do you take the message of the gospel and use Billy Graham's quote, how do you change the method without changing the message, but appeal to a generation who has the attention span of a moth?
You want to slip that little diss in there at the end. I got that. I think that was the main point. I got it. Like, you just want to make fun of millennials. Like, yeah, be a light right there. It's like, be a light. God's giving me something on the top of a hill. What if you did that? No, I would say, man, here's like a huge benefit of so many institutions and groups trying to market to the next generation as like a collective whole, but not as like an individual, is and the fatherless issue and not learning through college or getting a job. The thing that we offer as a church or as Christians, making disciples, is actually the thing that maybe connects so much this generation, and even unbelievers are somewhat wanting. Like, there's a huge rise in statistically of how many young people want mentorship. We can call it discipleship internally and mentorship to them, or apprenticeship or whatever, but like, this is actually something, because their parents are not that engaged or even related. I'm gonna tell you, I will go back to that and show how the breakdown happens, but like, I'll even say this, is that young people may not connect to institutions, but they will connect to individuals like yourself who represent institutions. And so it is a different strategy. It's not come as you are anymore. It's go where they are. And you as business leaders especially are in the culture. Like, they're not going to church, 7 out of 10 of them, but they are going to work for like a year or two. Like, and so, and a real talk, again, which means seriously, as college campuses tend to be more disciple-focused, I found, than churches. And I don't think it's because they're smarter or anything. I think it's because they're forced to think only discipleship. I also have the same situation with one of my favorite pastors. His name's Michael Fletcher. It's a church called Manna Church in Fayetteville, Fayetteville, North Carolina, and it's apparently the largest military base is in that city. So he found out when he became the senior pastor that they lose 1/3 of their people every year. And so he said, I had to build it around a culture of discipleship, because I couldn't build it around just myself or my speaking or a big event. And it forced discipleship. Same thing for a college. College ministers on campus are like, at best, we're going to get these kids for 4 years. At best, if we get them freshman year. So we know we're already going to lose them. That's actually helpful. So since they know they're going to lose them, it forces them not to just say, we just want to get them, as pastors sometimes can do this, get them as members, have them be lifelong members, give, serve, call it a wrap. This is like, we're losing them, so we're going to almost see this as a launching pad. We know they're going to go somewhere else, but let's get them so ready to go and impact whatever city, culture, or community or job they get and be a light on the hill there. That's different. Like, so they actually connect a lot to young people, because it's like on an individual level, because they are forced to think discipleship. Does that make sense? And so, one of the best things I think you can do is just have someone who, I would define discipleship as frequently following someone who is spiritually a step ahead. Frequently following someone who is spiritually a step ahead. Because the two reasons we don't disciple is we don't feel like we have time, but that's thinking mentorship. Mentorship is adding something to your calendar. Discipleship is including someone in your calendar. And I would say I have a book, and it breaks this down 6 chapters of practical discipleship. In my opinion, it's not the way, but it is a way. Is in your family life, your work life, your church life, or your personal life. These are all areas. Personal life is the most fun area because it's like your hobbies, the things you like to do, and inviting someone to do that. Then especially your family, I think, is one of the other strongest ones. Like having a young person come over for dinner might just be one of the most powerful things you can do because a lot of them grew up in broken homes or non-intentional homes. And so like for me getting discipled, I got discipled 2 weeks after I got saved. I thought it was normal. Like this guy asked me 2 weeks after I got saved, will you disciple me? Well, can I disciple you? I take you under my wing? And then I read about in the Bible about this guy named Jesus, Spanish for Jesus. He did that with these young people. And then I read about Naomi and Ruth and Elijah and Elisha. I thought just discipleship was normal. It was then until I got older, I realized, wait, all y'all weren't discipled either? It's just not normal to make disciples. And so I think that will set you apart. You, especially as you leaders, in a world where the culture is make fun of millennials, and you decide to be the individual that's like, I actually see things in you, and I want to fan that into flame. Literal 1 Timothy 4:12 says, do not let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set the believers an example in speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity. Until I come, devote yourself to the public reading of Scripture, teaching, and exhortation. And then it says, and immerse yourself in your calling, which was given to you by the prophecy and counsel of elders. And I think that's so powerful is this young adult verse, don't let anyone look down on you because you're young. Actually, 2 verses later brings up older people or old people. And I know y'all don't like being called old people. So it brings up chronologically superior people into the verse who are, again, key emphasis on superior. You guys are superior than us, and chronologically you are. It is very, I was an eye-opener. It's like maybe on my half, in my generation, if I was talking to them, I'd be calling them out, y'all got to stop being Lord of the Flies out here, just trying to raise yourself. Like, Piggy's going to die. We need to get around older generations because they will mess up your value system and they will mess up your perspective on life in all the right ways. And so you can do that. I mean, if half of us had someone that felt like they had a commitment to us as a discipler, that would change the world. Like it truly would. Real quick, I'm going to say this, and this is a long answer to you, but it always instigates more. And secondly, they might stay longer at your job because they're not going to find that probably at other jobs. In a culture where you actually want to develop them as a person, knowing, hey, I may lose you, but I want to make you a better wife, a better husband, a daughter of Christ. And even people that aren't unbelievers, you may not be able to talk about all that stuff, maybe outside of the work culture, but it's like, I will run through a wall for the men that poured into me and invested in me and believed in me. And they sometimes ask me to do things I definitely don't want to do, but I'm like, I owe you my life. And not many people have done that. And the whole and immerse yourself in your calling for the older generation, which was given to you, your calling. A lot of young people are struggling with what their calling is or what their purpose in life is. So like the scariest thing for a young person is, what are you going to do with your life and what are you going to be when you grow up? The calling actually ironically comes, I think, when older people start speaking it over them. And that's where it can differentiate. I would say you, but I'm really talking to everyone. In a world, again, where everyone's making fun of young people, you decide to be someone who says, prophecy, it says the council of elders and the prophecy of elders. Prophecy can simply be, depending on your denomination, because some people that scares them, prophecy can be as simple as 4 letters, I see in you. I see this in you. How often are you telling young people things you see in them that's really impactful? Because you could YouTube my name, Grant Skeldon, and hopefully you probably won't find it, but the very first message I ever gave was absolutely terrible. And I was 16, and it's on YouTube for whatever reason, someone recorded it. And it humbles me so quickly to watch it because I'm terrible. I mumble, and I can't express how bad it was. But there was an older man who put his hand on my shoulder afterwards. I've never met him before, and I've never seen him since, who said, I think you have a gift, man, to reach your generation. And I really think you should go to seminary, which I'd never heard of at the time. And he said, man, I really think you should consider speaking. And I was so nervous speaking. I didn't think it was good. And it did connect, I guess, to my generation, but that dude changed my life. And I remember him, and I'm just saying, like, do y'all do that for young people? Because it's huge. Wow. So, sir, I did see your question. I'm going to come back to it in a second. Thank you. Because I went so far off of what I've been trying to talk about, but it's good because I'm hyper-focused on this whole concept now. Here's the breakdown, is the American dream then became, how many of y'all are familiar with in y'all's world, I think this is a big book, is the Halftime book by Bob Buford, Halftime. I think the subtitle is like Turning Success to Significance. That's what this kind of is people got to the American dream. This isn't a millennial book. Most millennials I talk to have never heard of the book. This is Boomer Xer, is Bob Buford said, you get the American dream and you ask the question, man, is that it? And then they go from success to significance, and they consider, how can I use my time, talent, treasure for the glory of God, for the remainder of my life? And now they have resources, they have connections, they have all this. I loved that when I read that book because, actually, I'll be honest, I've never read that book. But when I heard that concept, I'm not trying to be funny, I don't want to lie, I never read the book. But I heard that concept, and I was like, that is exactly what millennials are doing. They're just not having a midlife crisis. They're having a quarter-life crisis. And they are, this is where you can help them. One of my good friends named Paul Sohn, he wrote a book called Quarter-Life Calling. It's like, what if we could catch them when they're having it? And by the way, they're not having it at the end of their life. They're having it at the beginning of their life, right now, because they got to see that it doesn't add up and it doesn't satisfy, that we have access to all these things and life is so much easier. And we have like our personal butler, Alexa, doing all this, but we're not more grateful or more happy. And we have more money, but it hasn't always led to fulfillment unless the passion and purpose part was a part of the plan while gaining success. Because I'm not against having money by any means. I'm just saying if we didn't also allocate time, talent, resources to that, they don't seem to be that satisfied in life. And so the great thing about this is realizing this shift is, how are we going to help them choose significance in their major? Now, where we really drop the ball is most millennials, going back to my friends I was talking to this morning, most millennials ironically don't feel the support to choose significance in their job, even from their Christian parents. Like, I've talked to so many young people and I'll say, doesn't it feel like your parents would love the idea of you? Like, if you told your parents that you were going to be a banker or a lawyer or a doctor or maybe anything that really makes good money, an architect, wouldn't they be like, oh my God, I love that, honey. Like, I totally want to help you. Or, Grant, that's great. Like, let's look at colleges, or let's look like what it looks like to become that. That we love when our kids are called to money-making callings. But, man, watch what happens when an architect in school for architecture or in school for being a lawyer or in school for being a doctor comes home from this conference. We all mess them up. And all of a sudden they're like, Mom, I went to this thing and I just feel like God's calling me to be a missionary. Babe, honey, slow down. Like, let's pray through that real quick. Or I think God's calling me to start a church. Or I think God's calling me to I just love worship. I just want to be a worship leader for God. It's not even like for Satan. It's for God. Like, okay, before you make any harsh, drastic decisions, let's just pray about it. I love that. I love your heart. And we're like lying, straight up lying. And it's like, but let's just make sure, okay, before you just like, don't do anything stupid, okay? I was like, Mom, what are we praying for? You think Satan wants me to be a missionary? Like, does Satan want me to start a church? That's so strange. That's a new strategy he's trying. It's like, what are we praying about? Like, y'all get what I'm saying? Like, that's the American church culture, is surely God. I had a guy from a business event like this come up to me once. He's like, man, this is before I spoke, which is not helpful. I didn't use him as an analogy, but he said, man, I love millennials, but he's like, my daughter, my worst fear just happened. She loves Jesus so much that she's going to go be a missionary. That's your worst fear? God, that's like some people's dream, is that their kids would love God enough to want to give up everything for him. I don't even understand how that's normal in the church. That there's a guy named, the student volunteer movement, John R. Mott. John R. Mott. If you're familiar with this, in the 1800s, dudes mobilized thousands of kids in college to give up college, or at least to take a gap year and or just right after college to go into the mission field for God. And some of them, if you know, like C.T. Studd and like literally got like I was gonna say the lacrosse team is the lacrosse that team with the net and the ball and they left. 7 of them left to go do this. There was a movement of young people giving up comfort and satisfaction and a good careers to go be missionaries. And he won a Nobel Peace Prize. This dude is legit, which means a good person. And so I just always translate. He said that, and as he got closer to his deathbed, he said, closer to death, he said that he believes, and this is one of the most powerful things I probably ever read, and I was like, dang, is he said that he believes the number one hindrance to world evangelization is Christian parents. That we are getting in the way of the next generation loving Jesus so much that they give everything for him. And I would say he has never met Christian parents today. Because you guys are the ones, ironically, and y'all tricked us so well, y'all came up with participation trophies. I don't know why we get made fun of them, because I just do the math. We were little kids. We didn't say at 6 years old, I wasn't like, Dad, no, give me one of those trophies. Y'all just gave it to us because y'all wanted everyone to win. And I'm not lying. Of course, yeah, millennials were like, yeah, we'll eat it up. Keep giving them. It's not a good combination where you're helicopter parenting, and we're like, great. If you're gonna pay my rent and let me live with you till I'm 38, sure. Why would I say no if you're gonna do all that? I'm not saying me. I'm just saying the most millennials are not gonna say, you know what? Actually, I think you're enabling me. I've never seen that. I've just not seen that. And so my point is, there's not a contrast, and these are not mutually exclusive. You either got to go the passion and purpose route, or you got to go the provision route. For the older generation, I would say, how many questions are you asking your kids, and how often are you helping them discover their passion, their purpose? Because most kids I've found, they said, my parents barely ever, if they ever call, it's usually about money. If they ever share concern, it's usually about money. If they think I should get a better job, or I need to do better in school, it's always about money. Again, my generation cares more passion and purpose. The problem with them is they're broke. And it's not either or. I also want to acknowledge that people coming out of the Great Depression didn't get the luxury to consider their passion job or their purpose job. They just had to do what put food on the table. And so again, this is where I think the enemy wins, is he gets us divided to where we have success, we've been successful at getting the next generation to have the luxury or the benefits of your labor to go join passion and purpose. But we want them to go through what we went through. And so a lot of them are like, no, you got to do this, you got to do this. And my thing is just, how can we bring this together? I would say, in closing, I think we need to do is, I think we just need to switch the order, is instead of only talking about provision when we're helping our kids choose their major, their job, all that, just switch the order from passion and purpose, intentional questions and prodding and ICNU moments, to then provision. And all this is in the book. I actually provide 15 questions that you can ask around passion to help them even start to think about and narrow what is it that you're passionate about. 15 questions around purpose, 15 questions around provision. Do I have my backpack around here? Real quick, I'll read just some of the provision questions. So imagine you've helped them think about their passion and their purpose, right? And all of a sudden, you're starting to become someone that they can trust a little more because you have shared concern for the things that they're passionate and purpose about. A quick analogy I use is Dead Poet Society. In that, I talk about in the book is John Keating, Robin Williams' character, he is the guy trying to flame the passion and the purpose. It's more than just this, but his dad, Neil's dad, is son, I'm not going to let you ruin your life. He literally says, throw away your life. I worked way too hard to get you into this school. You're going to go be a doctor. You're cutting, what is it? You're not going to do yearbook, and you're not doing theater arts. Have y'all seen the movie? I'm gonna spoil it. You had decades to watch this. And so he ends up having to, which I think a lot of young people are doing, is he has to go behind his dad's back in order to pursue his passion or his purpose. Or what he could do is he could do what his parents say and let his soul die. And and if you don't know, like, he ends up committing suicide. And I think a lot of reason why there's so much anxiety, depression, job hopping is because a lot of young people have no idea what they are supposed to do because they don't have parents or adults or older Christians that are wiser than them pouring into them and giving them guidance. And they have all this passion of, I want to be a part of something bigger than myself. And they don't know how to get there. And so they're just like anxious. And this is where the enemy wins, is he gets those things divided. But imagine you're helping them with their passion. You're helping them narrow their purpose. And then you start asking provision questions, which are inevitable. Like, no one gets their passion and purpose job usually in the first 5 to 7 jobs. It is a long haul. But then you at least see the path. So some of the provision questions in the book, I said, what sacrifices will you have to make? Because now you know what you want to be based on your passion and your purpose. What extra time will you have to give? What kind of mentors will you need to seek? What kind of friends will you need to surround yourself with? What kind of friends will you need to avoid? What time wasters will you have to cut? What is the minimum salary you can live with? What education will you have to pursue? What habits will you have to break? What habits will you have to form? I just think that we need more and more young people being like this guy, who is a guy that I met that I knew he discipled a young person, but this was actually, and I'll just end with this, is that I looked at this picture in his office, and he's a pastor in Seattle, and he discipled someone who's got the blazer on, who discipled a high school kid who he's never met. And I didn't realize there was a man who discipled him. And I saw that picture, I was like, what is this? And he said, we went on a retreat together. Because we had never met each other. The guy I discipled had never met the man who discipled me. And that man had never met the kid I discipled or the kid that he discipled. And I just wonder, could we get to heaven one day and have a picture like this? Because God didn't say go and make an impact. He didn't say go and make a difference. He didn't even say go and make new churches. He said go and make disciples. But if you go and make disciples, you will make an impact. You will make a difference, and you will make new churches, because all of a sudden it's multiplication, and you truly see God do incredible things. So yeah, again, in closing, what if we simply did this? Just simply make the commission great again. I love y'all.